G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Thanks, Rob and Michael, for joining us today. I just want to let the audience know that we're changing it up here a bit. Rather than having the standard podcast where we have our business owner on Fridays, we've just introduced a quick fire Friday cast. So less than 20 minutes, we'll talk about one area that can help a business where either the three of us will talk or we get an expert in. Before we get into explaining that a little bit more, though, I do want to introduce to the audience both Michael and Rob, who have just joined the Grow a Small Business team. Maybe start with you, Rob, a bit of a background.
Thanks, Troy. So I've been working as an advisor to small business owners for around 7 or 8 years now. Probably advised hundreds of businesses over that time. And along the journey, I guess I've owned either in full or been a partial shareholder in 4 or 5 businesses myself. So always learning and really passionate about sharing what I know with other business owners to help them.
Great. And Michael?
Yes, hi everybody. I'm mixed. So I've been involved with business owners for around 30 years. I'm actually a chartered accountant.
Sorry to hear that.
So I've saw the light recently.
Yep.
And so around 10 years ago, I started working with businesses more around strategy and business coaching, as well as succession planning, which is my passion. Like Rob and Troy, been involved with many businesses over the journey, mainly around accounting businesses, but also had a dabble in a bar restaurant, and that was a different experience.
Jesus, you are a masochist.
So certainly there was some learning curves out of that, and probably not coincidentally had a lot of experience in the hospitality sector, both with working with businesses in that sector, and we continue to do that, as well as that experience myself. Like I say, the last 10 years has been working with businesses around their strategy as their business coach, their sounding board, and helping them achieve and work towards their goals.
Great. And between the three of us, we've got over 60 years as business owners, combined experience. I think outside of that, we've worked with over 1,000 businesses as well, advising or managing them when we didn't have equity in them. So quite an experienced team here. And I think we've even got between us, we've owned more than 20 businesses and had more than 40 business partners who are not just passive shareholders, but people that work in the business alongside us. So we have a shit ton of experience between the three of us, and we all bring different aspects to that experience for the audience. So I'm really looking forward to this new format.
So, Troy, can you explain a bit about what Quick Fire Friday is and why we're adding it?
Well, we've got some feedback that the audience would like short, sharper casts, and also some quick fire actions that they can take into their business quite quickly. So we're loving the other casts we do. At the moment, it's 2 a week that go live, where we have an experienced business owner on. They talk about all the pitfalls, all the mistakes they've made, as well as the successes and wins. So this is a chance for us to either get an expert on in an area, say, for example, might be marketing or mindset, and get them to talk about their experience and their advice in 1 or 2 key areas for small business owners. So that's who we're here to help, those with 5 to 30 team members trying to grow to that next level. Michael, what topics do you think we should cover in this new format?
Well, I guess it's obviously anything that's relevant to small business owners. So topics are going to resonate. Also, we'll cover tools and tips from the many years of ourselves working with business owners and what we've learned. I think that's important. Stories from business owners that we've worked with or advised. Not only the good stuff, but also the fuck ups that have occurred. I think you learn as much from that. It's I've got a saying, you either win or you learn. So I think learning from mistakes is as important. Business improvement templates that we've developed over the years, that's be pretty powerful around systems and processes, and much more to help you grow your business, importantly with control.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm amazed. I get a shit ton of great tips from all the guests that come on the cast. I'd pretty much say every episode that I do at the moment, we're recording this for about 230 episodes live, and I always learn something in every episode, whether it's a new tool or technology to use or a recruitment tip. It's been a great learning resource for me. So we're looking forward to picking out some of those topics and diving a bit deeper, just one at a time on a Friday. And also, I think would be good for the three of us to delve into our own business experience as owners, and what we would do if we could jump in the DeLorean and go back in time and tell ourselves not to do this, or make sure you keep doing that.
So let's close out with each of us briefly telling a powerful good and a bad business experience, whether one of our own or one that we've worked with. So Troy, can I get you to kick off with that?
Yeah, I'll start with the bad experience, or something that I really advise people on these days. And I've talked about it on the cast a little bit, and it's really is recruitment, which is on the management level, as Mark from Manager Tools talks about. The most important thing a manager does is recruitment. I just want to take that up to the next level, which is as the business owner or entrepreneur, that first recruitment of getting your shareholders on board, and particularly if they're business partners, they're going to work alongside you in the business. Don't get shit ones. It's really, really important, because it can be such a distraction and it destroys so much value. And I think more importantly, can just make working with that team of shareholders or business partners not much fun. And I particularly, in the last 10 years, choose the businesses I work with, whether I own them or manage them for other people, to make sure that the people around me that are involved aren't arseholes, and I enjoy the time with them. So, I'd like to go out and have a beer with them. And I've seen, especially in the last few years, where the real impacts of the wrong business partners on the cap table, whether they're blocking votes or they're just being disruptive, or just the minor things, the noise takes the leader of the business, particularly if it's the business owner still working in the business, takes their eye off where the value generation is, which is often marketing and sales. So that would be the one thing that I'd really recommend to people, to choose your business partners carefully up front. On the positive side of episode 7, had a good friend of mine on the podcast, Rod, from the founder of Stillwater restaurant in northern Tasmania, here where we are all based. And he talks, and we've talked a bit on the golf course. We play a bit of golf together over the years. And he's told me how he exited from his business. And I think it's a great story, because he went into it with a generous mindset, found 3 A players as business partners, brought them in as employees first, and then approached them about coming in and taking equity. And that was episode 118. Craig Will is the executive chef at both Stillwater and Black Cow. And I had Bianca, who's one of the owners as well, on episode 143, where we talked about her work with mental health in the workplace from a business owner point of view. And Rod's attitude, there's that great Chinese proverb that you're better off having the tail of an elephant than the body of an ant. And that was the mentality that Rod took to when he's thought about exiting. Many years out, he wanted to make sure that he had good custodians for his 2 brands, great restaurants, award-winning in Tasmania here. And so he went about selecting or recruiting those future business partners wisely, and then also offering them a generous way to buy in. So he wasn't greedy. And he and Kim, who owned the first restaurant for over 30 years, and then the second one with the new business partners as well, have been rewarded well for that financially as well. And it's just a great environment to be in, that not just the restaurant as a customer, but hanging out with those 5 people. You can just see how that has rubbed off Rod's approach to exiting and growing the business firstly, and then exiting, to me, is just a stellar example of how to do it.
Fantastic. Sounds good.
Want to become the best manager you can be? Check out our Kick-Ass Manager course at growasmallbusiness.com. Do the course and add your fellow managers for no extra cost. Join the 30%. 70% of people quit their job because of their manager.
And Mick, how about you? Have you got a good and a bad experience in business?
Absolutely. I've got certainly a raft of those, but one that comes to mind is a business I've worked with closely for near on 15 years, a business called Total Freight Solutions, owned by Stephen Julie Miller. But this story is reflective of a lot of businesses that seek appropriate external support and advice. They recognised early days that they weren't hadn't the experience nor the expertise to grow the business, being their first business. So they sought my guidance and coaching early days. And from there, we sought and received advice in areas such as marketing, finance, whatever areas, law, that they haven't got the skill sets. And for me, that's certainly a key thing for businesses to grow and flourish, is not to look to try to do everything themselves where they don't have the skill sets. And it still amazes me to the day that businesses don't engage coaches nor mentors, the majority. And yet professional athletes all have coaches and mentors. So I just don't get that. I guess it's as much as the mindset around possibly cost and time, but if you don't invest in people around you to support you, you tend to go nowhere very quickly. Bad stories typically come around businesses where there's arm's length partners, and not just husband and wife necessarily, but there's no shareholder agreements. And like every agreement, they're only needed when the shit hits the fan. Unfortunately, I've seen the shit hit the fan too many times over the last 30 years. And unfortunately, most of those cases, no shareholder agreements. And it costs a lot of money, time, energy, and emotion. So if you've got arm's length partners, please make sure you've got a shareholder agreement.
Been there, Mick, and I've got the T-shirt.
Yeah, I think we've all probably seen a few of those over the journey.
No, but 2 or 3 of my own businesses, I fucked that up. We didn't have a shareholders agreement, or we had it, but we couldn't find the signed copy. So, yeah.
Yep. Steep learning curve.
What about you, Rob?
Yeah, look, I guess similar theme to Mick around advice. So if I talk about business owners that I've worked with, one of the most enjoyable clients that I've worked with was Kate Goodman from Goodman Conveyancing. Troy, you interviewed her on episode 33, and I guess one of the things I really admired about Kate and her approach to business was that she was always open to advice. So in some senses, really quite humble and prepared to listen to a lot of different perspectives. But at the end of the day, she could always make a decision and get on with it once she'd heard, I guess, the different perspectives that she needed to hear. And her business really went from strength to strength on the basis of that. And conversely, one of the more frustrating clients that I worked with, it was a building hardware business, a number of shareholders and directors in that business, but always really reluctant to get advice or seek advice until it was too late. So it always felt like we were putting out fires, and even when they got advice, for various reasons, they wouldn't tend to act on it quickly. And, unfortunately, it was a sad story in the end, in that the business ended up having to wind up. So they couldn't keep pace with change, and unfortunately, it went under. So a bit of a sad story there.
Rob, do you think that was more to do with ego? They couldn't take advice on, or didn't want to change, or was it just they were too busy to see the forest for the trees and actually get external advice in early enough, or was it both?
I think it was a bit of both. And I think there was also, because the business ran on relatively skinny margins, they were perhaps trying to be cautious with their money, but unfortunately it came back to bite them, because I mean, there's no question if they'd got advice earlier, even if they'd spent a bit more money on it, they would have saved an awful lot more than what they ended up losing. So yeah, I think that was a real lesson for me around what can happen if you don't get the right advice when you need it.
Great.
So if anyone in the audience has a topic that they'd like covered, please email me, rob@growersmallbusiness.com. And we'll close out now with a couple of actions that you can do in your business. Troy, did you want to start? What do you see as the action you'd like every small business owner to take?
Well, I think reflect on your current business partners and if they're not up to the standard that you need, then start thinking about exiting them. Or if you're considering new business partners or new businesses, just take your time, hang out with them socially, let your gut have more input into whether this person is someone you want to work alongside with. So I think really hone in that recruitment skill at that shareholder and business partner level, invest in that, whether you've going into a new business or you've got existing business partners. Because if they're holding you back, then start considering getting them out or getting out yourself.
Great. And how about you, Mick?
I think just to overlay what Troy said, if you've got business partners that isn't your spouse, then make sure you've got a shareholder agreement. And then if the shit does go down, you've got some reference points and it should save a lot of time, money and energy.
Yeah, good point. And look, I guess the action from my stories is really around having professionals you can go to get the right advice, whether that's around financial advice or strategic advice or people advice. If you get the right team around you who can prompt you with the right advice, you're most likely going to avoid problems and really be able to capitalize on opportunities in front of you.
Great. Thanks, guys. Looking forward to Quickfire Fridays.
Absolutely.
And for our audience, we'd greatly appreciate a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. More reviews means we bubble up higher in iTunes, etc. So more business owners looking for podcasts to help with their growth will find us.